First part of session 92. Let's dip our toes here with the potentiator of the mind. Card number 2 of the archetypical mind. Let's begin. In the last session, we discussed a lot about the first card, the matrix of the mind, speaking of the tarot and the archetypical mind. So here we're going to go through the beginning of the session, which is usually just conversation about Carla and the fifth density negative entity that was stalking them, so to speak. And then it goes into the potentiator of the mind, which is, again, card number 2 of the tarot when reading it for the archetypical mind or studying it for the archetypical mind. So I don't have much to refresh other than to say that the matrix of mind we studied in the last session, and that's important to know how the potentiator of the mind actually interacts with it and what's the dynamic between the two that generates catalyst and experience and so on. So yeah, if you haven't, of course, go watch it or listen to it, and then we'll be good for this. So let's start with the beginning of the session, which, like I said, is just maintenance questions, they used to call them. Question 1, as usual, Don says, could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? And Ra says, the condition of this instrument is slightly more distorted towards weakness in each respect since the previous asking. So again, this delineates the sacrifice that was very common, of course, from the three of them, but specifically Carla, because she was the channel of the channeling Ra. And it's interesting that she devoted herself a lot into this work to the point of she was giving herself, like her dedication to sacrifice, to martyrdom, as Ra used to say often, was that she didn't care if she didn't wake up at all. She was doing this because this was her biggest gift to the Creator and, of course, the world. So is this prudent? I don't know. It depends on who sees it. Does it have consequences? Yes, it does. When you give yourself so much for something, then there are consequences for you. And I'm not saying that these consequences are good or bad. We usually think that, oh, sacrifice is a good thing, or, oh, it's a bad thing. That's subjective. That has to be, with your state of mind and what you think. But yeah, it's just notable to see that she was sacrificing a lot of her physical and vital energies. She was playing a lot with her life, basically, to do this, and that's commendable. So I just wanted to mention it. Her energies were slightly less than the last session, so that's that. Important to keep in mind. Question 2, Don says, is there anything or a specific cause for this, and could you tell us what it is if so? So what's causing this drainage of energies? Ra says the effective cause of the increased physical distortions have to do with the press of continued substantial levels of the distortion you call pain. Various vehicular distortions other than the specifically arthritic have been accentuated by psychic reading, and the combined effect has been deleterious. And they say the continued slight but noticeable losses of the vital energies is due to the necessity for the instrument to call upon this resource in order to clear the, shall we say, way for carefully purified service to others working. The use of the will in the absence of physical and, in this particular case, mental and mental emotional energies requires vital energies. So again, we see a depiction of Carla's dedication to service here. So the physical energy distortion was due to pain, and other than the arthritical conditions that she had in her joints, which caused the pain, of course, there was also accentuation of the psychic reading by the fifth density negative entity that was present doing its own work. And that is, of course, the reduction of the capacity for this working, and so it would attack, if you will, those inclinations, those distortions, those mental biases that Carla had. So it would drain more energy. And then again, they say the loss of vital energies, which was gradual, as they were saying, was due to the necessity for Carla, in essence, to call upon the resource of Ra to more purify the service to others. So her dedication to this channeling was draining her of vital energies. The use of the will in the absence of physical and mental emotion energies is interesting that they differentiate these two, and I like it because mental could be just any mental activity, but then when emotions arise, then there is a combination of not just mental but physical too, right? So anything that is mental activity that produces a sensation in the body is an emotion, and so that requires vital energies to be used. You're dedicating, in essence, your desire to live is invested in this, and this is why we clear up so many of our emotional reactions and ourselves, you know, who we make of our emotions our personality. That to me is a limiting factor in our lives when we say, I am an angry person, or I'm a nostalgic person, or I am this, or I am that. Again, it's identifying with the mental processes that produce a certain emotion in you, and then you identify with that. That produces a sort of stagnation because you're not that. You know, that's something that's happening in you. So don't identify with it. Just allow it to go. Some people are afraid of letting go of certain qualities, emotional qualities that they have, because they think that that purity or that divinity that is distilled out of the emotion will be lost. Let me rephrase this. Some people think that if they change or they let go of those things that produce these emotions in them, then that beautiful thing that they admire in themselves, which is, you know, it's not a selfish thing, it's not an ego thing, it's just appreciating the beauty of, you towards life. They think that this would disappear. Not really. What will disappear is the tendency to use vital energies into these emotions, right? And so you can let go of that, and you will see how that which is the core of what's producing, and it's not really producing the emotion, but is intertwined with the emotion, is part of you. But that doesn't require vital energies. That is just an abundant, a plentiful, infinite, actually, source of that love, which is really what it all comes down to. All of our emotions are based on love. But in any case, it's a deep topic, and I just like that distinction between mental energies and mental emotional energies. They both require, of course, vital energies. So the use of the will, in this case, her will to continue the contact, in the absence of physical, mental, and mental emotional energies, is quite deleterious, as they said. Did they say that here? I said in the past, yes. Well, in general, of course, that'll drain your vital energies, and so she will have the consequences that I was talking about before. Her arrangement, her mental arrangement, as it is the case for all of us in different, of course, configurations, will cause that sort of vital energy depletion, which is, of course, vital, as the word says it. Question 3, Don says, we have been attempting to figure out how to provide the instrument with the swirling water, which we hope to do very soon. Is there any other thing that we can do to improve this situation? Swirling water seems like a jacuzzi to me, or some sort of powered water massage. Ross says, continue in peace and harmony. Already the support group does much. There is the need for the instrument to choose the manner of its beingness. It has the distortion, as we have noted, towards the martyrdom. This can be evaluated and choices made only by the entity. I love that Ra is very encouraging of, show me who you are. We can't tell you anything but, what's happening. And I think that is something that I subscribe to when formulating some sort of teaching or providing information to somebody who is requesting it, is to suggest to the other person that they do the work, that they make the decisions, that they think about something. You can only show that which is undeniably true, and truth needs to be scaled down to the person, because every individual will have blockages to see the truth, and those blockages need to be honored. They don't need to be bashed or forced upon with truth. It's a very real thing that we try to do as humans. It's not a terrible attitude. I think it comes from an intense desire to change somebody, to want to transform somebody. But when you're providing information to somebody else, it's important to honor their blockages and to respect their process. And I think Ra does this here, and they're actually very clear to it, and they say, there is the need. First of all, they're doing everything that they can. That's a very important point to maintain here as we talk about the history of LNL research, or this trio of Don, Carla, and Jim. They were doing everything. They were fully dedicated to this, and it's almost like they lived for nothing else but this contact, and they did everything. Continue in peace and harmony. That's the best advice they could give. Continue. They didn't say, go return to the peace and harmony. No, continue with that peace and harmony that you have. And they already do a lot. But then they add, there is the need for the instrument, for Carla, to choose the manner of its beingness. What does that mean, to choose the manner of your beingness? Well, you have to be completely decided to who you are. If you are described this and that way, then, that's who you are. If you wish to change, or if you wish to just let go of things and see what comes up, then that's also true for you. Anything goes. So you have to choose. Who are you? What is informing your reality? You choose that. Then Ross says, we have noticed basically that she is inclined towards martyrdom. Well, this can be evaluated, and choices made only by Carla. You have to evaluate those tendencies that you have. You see, while I say that you shouldn't identify with your personality, I believe it is important to identify our inclinations. That is not to say identify with our inclinations or biases, but rather to identify our tendencies, our biases, our inclinations, our preferences. What is it that this body-mind wants? What is it that it's craving for? Identify those things. Don't identify with them, but identify them, so you can make choices and say, well, I'm not at all interested anymore in this preference. I wish to change it. And so that's the beginning, of a transformation. Just to be conscious, aware of what's going on with you. Let's move on. Question 4, Don says, what is the present situation with the fifth density negative visitor we have? And there's an inaudible part to this. But basically asking, what's going on with the fifth density negative entity? Ra answers, it is with this group, so it's with them. Don follows up and says, what prompted its return? Ra says, the promptings were duple. There was the recovery of much negative polarity upon the part of your friend of fifth density, and at the same approximate nexus of a temporary lessening of the positive harmony of this group. Very important here. So we're looking at the dynamics of the universe. Because everything needs to be balanced out, of course. We can see here that whatever is a negative tendency in the universe will continue that until a certain point. It can't reach maximum negativity. Just like we can't reach maximum positivity, there needs to be a balance between the two, and that is sixth density, in which everything is appreciated as one. Both polarities, and so we merge. However, it is true, and I will say this because I usually get the question of, so if we polarize positively and then in sixth density there is no more positivity, then why do we say that God or intelligent infinity is positive? We need more refinement here, because intelligent infinity is not positive nor negative, because there is no negativity, right? There is no positivity anymore. However, from our perspective, from our vantage point, we're looking at what's the right path. And so, is it separation? It's not. That is false. You can follow it, you can see where it leads you, but it's going to lead you to the resolution that negativity or separation is not real. Unity is the only real thing, right? So that is the positive path. So in contrast with the possibility of going through a path of deception, we see it positive. But once we have passed the threshold of the possibility of identifying with the falsehood, then there is no more need for these concepts. Polarities are dissolved. If you think this is something that awaits you in the future, you are wrong, my friend. This is not awaiting you in the future. Sixth density is not the future. Sixth density is now. You can see this now. You can investigate into your nature and see this to be true. You don't need to wait for the culmination of third density and fourth and fifth to see this. It's now. You can see it. That's the non-dual view of reality, and that's what Ra basically claims, the law of one. It's the same thing. Only oneness exists, and you can realize this now, here, in the present moment. So, all right, enough deviation. So the fifth density negative is, it's back with them because it regained its polarity, and then there is, of course, something was happening between the three of them that lessened the positive harmony of them. We don't know what that was. Question 6, Don says, is there anything that we can do about the instrument's stomach problem or constipation? So yet another issue in Carla's body. Ra says, the healing modes of which each is capable are already in use. So not much to say here, but to mention that, once again, they were doing everything. The healing modes of which each is capable is already in use. So they were doing, once again, everything that they could, and that's fine. Sometimes it is important just to sit with your illness, imagine, I don't know, you have a headache, and all you can do is stop working or doing whatever you do, and you take some pills maybe. There's nothing wrong with that. You take a couple of pills. Well, the headache doesn't go away. Maybe it lessens a little bit, and you continue doing activities, and maybe you settle down and you just relax and the headache is still there. Well, you have done everything you could. Just don't stress it anymore, because that may only exacerbate things. So just sit with the pain. You did everything you could, and that's it. Engulf the pain with your awareness. See, that's it. That's the harmony. That's the highest harmony you can summon, to the present moment. Awareness, pure awareness. So we move to, I think, the first full question here for the archetypical mind. Question 7. Don says, in the last session we discussed the first tarot card of the Egyptian type. Are there any distortions in the cards we have, which we will publish in the book if possible, that Ra did not originally intend, with the exception of the star, which we know is a distortion, or any additions that Ra did intend in this particular tarot? So, are there any more distortions in the card? This is card 1, by the way, the Matrix of Mind. Ra says, the distortions remaining after the removal of astrological material are those having to do with the mythos of the culture to which Ra offered this teach-learning tool. This is why we have suggested approaching the images, looking for the heart of the image, rather than being involved overmuch by the customs and creatures of a culture not familiar to your present incarnation. We have no wish to add to any already distorted group of images, feeling that although distortion is inevitable, there is the least amount which can be procured in the present arrangement. So I'd like to give a little slant, a different slant to something I said in the last session about mythological use for knowledge, for understanding. We have a false assumption that knowledge is, you see, we think that epistemology is derived from acquiring things outside and sort of filling up this hard drive. We are a hard drive, blank hard drive when we're born. And just it gets added information to it. That's how we see it. This is at best a misconception, if not totally wrong. Knowledge is knowing. It's simple. Knowledge is knowing. It is not conceptual knowledge. It's simple knowing. The more you know, meaning not conceptual knowledge, but experience known, then the more knowledge you have, the more wisdom you have. It's an inherent wisdom. So when learning this, it's important to keep it at the minimum. Yes, we have to use tools. We have to use maybe books, maybe images, maybe some sort of verbal iteration. Doesn't matter how it is, or like the Buddha's white flower sermon, where he just sat there looking at a flower, a white flower. That's a teaching. It's a huge teaching there. And that's where it's supposed to have originated, Zen, which not really. We just say, the Buddha was using a Zen technique before Zen even existed, which is just a play of words, of course. Zen has existed since the dawn of humankind, or human beings. In any case, we have methods, we have structures in which we can learn. We can use them, but we don't get lost with the tools, is in essence what Ra is saying here, and which I mentioned in the last session, because this is the confusion that arises from believing or learning specific things through the structure that we're learning. it's better to go into the heart of what it's teaching, and that's what Ra is saying here. So it's not just the star that was astrological. I feel that Ra mentioned this because there wasn't much to the archetypical mind that the star would suggest. I think you can go on and depict in many ways, or many things can be depicted out of an archetype, because you can describe it in so many ways. You know, I can put up a screen there. You know, I can put up a joystick now. These are things of our culture. See, I'm thinking about technology now. We're all thinking about technology, so we use technology as a reference. Does that mean that we are the screen, and we get, along with the analogy of the screen, so much that we get lost with it? No. So we use them as a reference. They are a sort of, a cane to help us move, but it's not the leg itself. So, once again, forget about the mythos. Go to the heart of what it's supposed to mean. So, yeah, customs, creatures, all of that is part of a culture that no longer describes ourselves. And it's amazing that they don't want to add anything else, of course. Please don't add anything else. Just let's use whatever's there, minimalistic, and just as a bridge to the true understanding of what we're talking about. Moving on. Question 8, Don says, then you are saying that the cards that we have here are the best available cards in our present illusion at this date. Ra says, your statement is correct in that we consider the so-called Egyptian tarot the most undistorted version of the images which Ra offered. This is not to intimate that other systems may not, in their own way, form unhelpful architecture for the adept's consideration of the archetypical mind. Which, again, if we're going to talk about the flesh and bones of, or should I say the sinew and bones of the archetypical mind, then yes, the Egyptian tarot is the most undistorted version of the teaching that Ra gave. Clearly, because later on we added more distortions. Now, are these distortions unhelpful? Not really. They're just more ways to describe the archetypical mind and the archetypes per se. Standalone archetypes, as it were. And so we depict many things in them. They can be helpful for certain people, I suppose. And that's something to keep in mind. A lot of people have learned about the archetypical mind, not only through the tarot, but through other systems. So are they helpful? Of course they are. Are they different from what Ra teach back then or taught? Of course. So to answer Don's question, yes, it is the most undistorted version of Ra's tarot, let's say. But the other ones are helpful too. So keep that in mind as well. Next question. It's question 9. Don says, I would like to attempt an analogy of the first archetype in that when a baby is first born and enters this density of experience, I am assuming then that the matrix is new and undistorted, veiled from the potentiator and ready for that which is to be experienced, the incarnation. Is this correct? Ra says, yes. This is a fantastic analogy to understand so many things. I could possibly go on with this analogy for a good half hour, I would think. But okay, the matrix. What is the matrix? Let's take the example of a baby. A baby sees or depicts a matrix, right? We see it as having no biases, no knowledge yet. The matrix is unpotentiated, right? Isn't that what Don said? It's ready. It's veiled from the potentiator and ready for that which is to be experienced. That doesn't mean that, of course, the baby has no potentiator. Oh, believe me, it does. But that potentiator is yet to be reached, to be touched upon by the matrix. And so this is important because we see that the matrix that the baby has is the same matrix that we have, only that our matrix has been potentiated so many times that it's almost like automatic. You know, we have created so many, what do you call it? Mental formations, yes, thought patterns, thought forms. And so, yeah, it may be filled with that, and that's what meditation is going back into the clearing of this. And Ra suggested this, in fact, you know, that state of the conscious mind unpotentiated is akin to crystallization. Is the baby's mind. And so we have that. We didn't lose that. You know, our innocence has never been lost. You know, as they like to say, our innocence is never lost. It's just clouded. You see, it's the innocence of God that wants to be here. And that has to do with beingness. Beingness is not a biased thing. Beingness is. We get confused ourselves and we bias a certain personality, which we call the separate self, and it's just a bunch of, you know, assumptions, beliefs. They're not real, but we live by those beliefs. You can see when those beliefs are broken, the person is liberated. And you know, this doesn't have to be on a spiritual path. It could be anybody. You know, some people are liberated by just breaking the belief in, let's say, God, you know, as a sort of higher being that is there watching them all the time. And, you know, the loss of that belief is just a great maturity that blossoms, you know, in the person. So, yeah, if we can just get in touch again with that innocent part of us. It's always been there, and it's not a regression. You know, it's not like you're regressing to the child's mentality, which is uninformed. See, it's not mature. We have a maturity already in us. Then that maturity will shine through this innocence because it has always been there. So we kind of need a balance between the two, between that which is the unknown, the truth of us, and then that which is known to us, which is whatever little knowledge we have. And so a sort of, you know, humble approach to life is achieved and gradually expanded. Not just achieved, but gradually expanded. So, okay. Much more to say there. Yes, you know, yeah, it's I can do honor to it. The matrix of the mind being depicted as the mind's baby, or the baby's mind. It's a beautiful one. Question 10. Don says, I would read several statements here and ask for Ra's comments on the statement. First, until an entity becomes consciously aware of the evolutionary process, the logos or intelligent energy creates the potentials for an entity to gain the experience necessary for polarization. Would Ra comment on that? Ra says, this is so. We have talked about this, and this is deviating a little bit from the archetypical mind because this has, I'm not going to say anything to do, but it's not directly related to the archetypical mind, but rather is the process of pre-incarnative programming. So what happens, just as a refresher, because I think this will come up again in the next questions. There is the entity, and the entity has a sort of evolutionary process. If it's a new entity, it has very little evolutionary experience. It hasn't activated much of its energy centers. if anything at all. And then there is the evolved entity, which is a lot more permeable to the influxes, let's say, of the spirits. So before there is a certain threshold, which Ra called the activation of the heart chakra, before that threshold, there is a sort of automatic feeding of catalysts to the entity, just like animals in nature have, right? Can we say that somebody is programming their catalyst? No, it's just the movements of intelligent energy as they are, or as it is, for the animals. And so they encounter just logoic catalysts, which is just the movements of nature. Coming from that point, then new third density entities, humans, who have just started their evolutionary process, first incarnation, maybe first 20 incarnations, who knows how long it takes for somebody to activate the heart. It could take them 100 incarnations, I don't know. The point is that there is a threshold in which the entity will open the heart and say, wow, I am not this limited being. I am actually something else. I do not understand it, but it is beyond mind and body. And so spirit is being channeled through. Ah, great. Fantastic. It's willingly now. The entity is knowledgeable of this. So when it dies, pre-incarnatively, it programs itself because it is now able to see itself. It's almost like God opened its eye through the heart. You see, whereas before it was dormant. It was the same God, nothing different. And there was nobody else programming it but its own subconscious, let's say. The logoic subconscious information or intelligence was programming its own catalyst until it opens its eye and says, I am. And once through this I am, it can never close its eyes again. At least not in time-space where this programming happens. When it comes here, though, then the veil of forgetting, of course, makes us asleep again. So we need to wake up, if you will, a second time. But the heart is already open. The heart is already awake. So that's what Don is talking about here. This is old. I think he was just asking this for part of his sequence of questions that he's going to ask, right? So I think he was just making sure, because we know this. Until an entity becomes consciously aware of the evolutionary process, the logos or intelligent energy creates the potentials. See, it potentiates an entity to gain experience necessary for polarization. What is that polarization for? Activating the heart. It's not for graduation, but it's activating the heart chakra, which means, yeah, you begin to work now consciously towards graduation, towards harvestability. Don't confuse the two. Polarization is not an indication of graduation or harvestability, but it is the means in which graduation happens because you polarize. So let's say polarization happens until heart activation, and then heart activation propels it beyond 51%, if you remember the numbers. But okay, let's see what else Don says. Question 11. Don says, then this occurs because the potentiator of the mind is directly connected through the roots of the tree of mind to the archetypical mind and to the logos which created it. And because the veil between the matrix and potentiator of the mind allows for the development of the will, would Ra comment. This sounds strange to me. Ra says, some untangling may be needed as the mind-body-spirit complex, which has not yet reached the point of the conscious awareness of the process of evolution, prepares for incarnation. It has programmed for it a less than complete, that is to say, a partially randomized system of learnings. The amount of randomness of potential catalysts is proportional to the newness of the mind-body-spirit complex to third density. So this adds another layer of fascinating understanding of this system. So yeah, this paragraph adds definitely another layer to this understanding of how the entity evolves through the incarnations. So once again, see how I talked about the new entity and then the veteran or the evolved entity. Depending on that spectrum, then a series of randomized catalysts will be programmed, which kind of makes sense. At the beginning, it was 100% random catalyst, which again is not, it's random from our perspective, but is completely harmony or harmonized by the logos. Intelligent energy is harmony. It's not, inharmonious. So we're working with what seems to be random to the awakened entity. But then at some point, that will be I'm just going to call it a percentage just for visualization, but yeah, that would become a percentage will be random, and the other percentage will be program, right? Let's reread it again. As the mind-body-spirit complex, which has not yet reached the point of conscious awareness of the process of evolution, prepares for incarnation, it has programmed for it a less than complete, so a partially randomized system of learnings. So this entity must have passed the threshold, right? But it's not fully aware of the process of evolution. That's interesting. For any entity to program in its incarnation, whether that be randomized or not, it needs to have reached that level of activation of the heart. So I guess it depends on how much of that activation. So for example, a wanderer can fully program its incarnation because it's past, way past that point. Whereas an entity who is just barely grasping the lessons of love and understanding, heart chakra, they may need to rely a lot on randomized catalyst. That's pretty cool. I like it. So the amount of randomness of potential catalyst is proportional to the newness of the mind-body-spirit complex to third density. Yeah, that makes sense. It is less and less random the more evolved or veteran or more seasoned, let's say, the entity is. Very interesting. I never thought about it this way. Ra continues and says, this then becomes a portion of that which you may call a potential for incarnation or incarnational experience. This is indeed carried within that portion of the mind which is of the deep mind, the architecture of which may be envisioned as being represented by the concept complex known as the potentiator. So here's where we see the archetypical mind working or in place. All the catalysts and experience that is programmed, it's independent from the archetypical mind, of course. The archetypical mind is just the structure in which this is going to play out, right? How it's going to filter through experience in third density in this particular planet and be seen by the entity which is God itself. How is it going to perceive it? Is it going to perceive it very random, or is it going to perceive it as very, me, myself, I've been doing this, I am responsible for everything. See, the perspective is the only thing that changes. Awareness never changes. Awareness is always constant because awareness equals God. God is aware. Only one being can be aware in creation, and that is the one creator. So, okay. This then becomes a portion of which you call a potential for incarnational experience. That amalgamation of, let's say, program experience, or that which wants to be experienced, goes part of potential. It's potential. It doesn't mean that it's going to execute, but it's going to be very latent, waiting for it, right? And so this is indeed carried within that portion of the mind, which is of the deep mind, right? We're talking about now the architecture of the mind, the roots of the mind, the tree of mind. The architecture of which may be envisioned as being represented by that concept complex known as the potentiator. Beautiful. So again, the potentiator being the unconscious mind, that is the structure, the architecture of the mind itself as it goes deep into all the different layers of mind, planetary, racial, individual, of course, being first, unconscious mind, and so on, all the way to intelligent infinity. So, okay, that's a potentiator. That's the unconscious mind. And then Ra gives a sort of clarification here. They say, it is not in the archetypical mind of an entity that the potential for incarnational experience resides, but in the mind-body-spirit complex's insertion, shall we say, into the energy web of the physical vehicle and the chosen planetary environment. However, to more deeply articulate this portion of the mind-body-spirit complex's beingness, this archetype, the potentiator of the mind, may be evoked with profit to the student of its own evolution. Whew. So this sounds very complicated, but it's not. Ra is just differentiating that it is not in the archetypical mind of an entity, right? It's not in the... we all have the same archetypical mind, all of us. Isn't that strange that we all behave differently and yet we have the same archetypical mind? So when we see relatedness, we say it's like, oh yes, of course, I relate to your situation because I've had similar situations. Why are they similar? Because there are archetypes, there are structures in which we go through. And so we say, yes, I can totally relate to that. Whereas if we talk about, our experience with somebody else on another planet, they may say, we may have some relatedness because we all have, absolutely all of us have a significator, matrix and potentiator, but they may not have catalyst and experience. And so, that they may just not relate to us. They may be different. But we humans can relate to each other completely because of this. However, that which makes up ourselves is not the archetypical mind. You see, it's very tricky, to talk about this, but I'm sure you can see it. Don't confuse the blueprint with the structure. Okay, so it's not the archetypical mind of an entity that the potential of incarnational experience resides, but in the mind-body-spirit complex's insertion into the planet, basically, the energy web of the physical vehicle and the chosen planetary environment. So this is another thing. Yes. You remember when we talked about the programming of the physical vehicle? For example, you may program certain limitations or enhancements to your body for a specific experience, and this is actually very interesting. Too bad that we can't marry it with so many genetic studies where we get into, is there a gene for sports? Is there a gene for music? Is there a gene for... We may be missing the point by only looking at physical structure, because there is a music being played, within us, a vibration, a harmonious vibration that is the expression of us. You see, and so that may definitely interact with the DNA and gene structure of our beingness, and so suddenly, there is a sort of talent that is appreciated in the individual. So my suggestion here is that is the energy web of the physical vehicle. You see, so the interaction between this potential for experience that is programmed prior to incarnation is sort of merged with the vibration of the chosen vibration of the physical vehicle, which is a mind-body-spirit complex. It's just not the physical, chemical, tangible vehicle that we see here. It's everything, mind-body-spirit complex. So that doesn't necessarily will guarantee that the individual will, be it's his best version of it. You see, we say this a lot. Become the best version of yourself. Well, that best version of yourself is allowing that which is you. It's that simple. You don't have to push anything. You just need to allow. You need to stop repressing yourself. Is basically this. And so this flows through, and that is the activation, of the potential of yourself. And the chosen planetary environment is also, I guess, important. I'm thinking two things here with planetary environment. One, planet Earth in general is an environment, right? That's an energy web that we all are under the influence. But it could be also the environment of the specific planet, like your culture, your climate, your the country in which you live, independent of culture, or the state in which you live, the family in which you live. All of that may have an influence, right? But it's important to know that every single aspect of your life has been programmed, not to happen, but just to, let me rephrase that. Every single aspect of your life has been in the direction of the program, which was for you to express yourself in the utmost possible way. What I'm saying is that your life has been always going into the direction of peace, beauty, harmony, joy, ecstatic being. It's always been going there, and everything that has happened to you has been in that direction. This is why anybody who looks back, and you can do this exercise, you can look back at your life and say, wow, everything that has happened is for me to be here right now. And what is it that I most desire in my life? Regardless of whatever objective thought form may come up in your mind as an answer for that, the underlying non-objective reason is joy, love, happiness, peace, sharing, appreciation, gratitude. All of this mixed together is the bliss of existence. So everything that you have been through up to this point has been in this direction, and you can appreciate that now. So that's why Ra says, to more deeply articulate this portion of the mind-body-spirit complex beingness, the archetype, the potentiator of the mind may be evoked with profit to the student of its own evolution. I don't need to say anything else here. That's exactly what I've been saying. The potential of the mind, which is that which lies dormant in you and wants to just express itself, may be evoked with profit to you, the student of your own evolution. Beautiful. Let's move to the next question. Don says in question 12, then are you saying that the source of pre-incarnative program catalyst is the potentiator of mind? No. No, they say, we are suggesting that the potentiator of the mind is an archetype which may aid the adept in grasping the nature of this pre-incarnative and continuingly incarnative series of choices. The potentiator of the mind is that which facilitates to the entity that which is potential for him or her. There is a subtle distinction there, and it can be appreciated if you allow yourself to be. I think that's the best way I can suggest the work of the potentiator. Just allow yourself to be. Stop getting in your own way. Allow. Accept. Isn't that what we say? When working with the unconscious mind, accept that which is. Accept everything. That would clear up any blockages, and it will crystallize your being. In a nutshell, just acceptance. Acceptance of what is. Your mind, your environment, your past, and whatever it is that is right now, especially what is right now. So, again, Don's question is a little bit deviated by saying that the source of pre-incarnative program catalyst is the potentiator of the mind. That's not true. The potentiator of mind is that which facilitates, I would say, the programming, the information, the data that is coming through, with the direction, like I said, of always bringing bliss, attracting bliss to your life, giving and receiving bliss. I think I'm going to cover a couple more questions, and we will maybe just one more. This one, the upcoming one, is wow. This wow question is question 13. Don says, thank you. Third, just as free will taps intelligent infinity, which yields intelligent energy, which then focuses and creates the densities of this octave of experience, the potentiator of mind utilizes its connection with intelligent energy and taps or potentiates the matrix of mind, which yields catalyst of the mind. Is this correct? Yeah, let me not say anything. And Ra would say, this is thoughtful but confused. The matrix of the mind is that which reaches, just as the kinetic phase of intelligent infinity through free will reaches for the logos, or in the case of the mind-body-spirit complex, the sub-logos, which is the free will potentiated beingness of the body, or the mind-body-spirit complex, to intelligent infinity, love, and all that follows from that logos, to the matrix, or shall we say the conscious awaiting self of each entity, the self or the love or of the love, my God, the love or the sub-logos spinning through free will, all those things which may enrich the experience of the creator by the creator. I want to read something that is noted in the Ra context, and this is by the LLL research guys. They say, much debate has been waged upon the question of how to punctuate this tangle of a reply. This particular punctuation is one among other possible subjective interpretations of what Ra intended to say. So, yes. You could see that there are dashes and there are parentheses and there are semicolons and commas and dots and all kinds of things here, because wow, try reading this without any punctuation and figure out what's happening. I'm gonna give it my best here, I gotta be honest, otherwise I'll spend too much time trying to create different interpretations, and I'll just go with whatever comes right now. Don's question, let's start with Don's question. He said that, let's go bit by bit so we can draw a good map here, or at least a diagram of what's happening. Let's start with intelligent infinity, okay? Intelligent infinity is. There's nothing to say about intelligent infinity, it just is. It's infinite and is intelligent, meaning that it's alive. It's not just some inert infinity. It's living, it's self. Self, infinite self is. That's it. Infinite self is. You can see that in you. I am, and there is no limits to myself other than perception. Perception is the limit. But imagination is limitless, or the potential for imagination. I don't need to hammer this point too much. Alright, so what happens? Free will, the capacity for me to direct my attention anywhere will tap into this intelligent infinity. I'm tapping into myself. That is free will. Free will is the first distortion. Fantastic. This yields intelligent energy, which is simply the clay which we're going to use to form. We can call it mind. Intelligent energy is mind. Potential mind. Okay, just see it as that. It's still intelligent infinity, but we call it intelligent energy now because it can move. Intelligent infinity doesn't move in and of itself. It needs to want to move, and that's intelligent energy. Then this focuses, that's love, and creates the densities of this octave. That's love and light. Boom, creation. It's done. You want to do it in your mind? Follow me. Try to see and sense the background of all your thoughts. Can you see any limits there? No. Okay, that's intelligent infinity, period. There is no limitation, it's infinite. And you know it's intelligent because it's you. You're seeing it, you're alive, you're being. Perfect. Now, move yourself in your imagination. Have thoughts, have images, all these kinds of things, right? Where are they appearing? In space, in the space that you call you. That's space, right? And so space is where everything appears, and that's you. Don't forget it. That space allows things to happen. And so because they're happening in a supposedly sequence, we call it time, space and time. That's it. You are the matrix. You are the womb of space and time. Can you feel it? Good. So that is what's happening here. Your own desire, your own free will with love focuses on what it wants to see. You know, and that's creation. Now, the potentiator of mind, Don is saying, utilizes its connection with intelligent energy. I think this is what it gets a little bit muddied, but it's fine. You know, yes, the potentiator of mind utilizes its connection with intelligent energy and taps or potentiates the matrix of the mind. Yeah, the correction here is that it's not the potentiator, but the matrix that does this, at least in the diagram that we see here. And that yields catalyst of the mind. Yes and no. That interaction yields catalyst, but it's not potentiator to matrix. That's why Ra says the first thing, the matrix of the mind is that which reaches, right? So the matrix of the mind, just so you know, the matrix of the mind is that which reaches to potentiator, to potentiate itself. And they say, just as the kinetic phase of intelligent infinity, which is intelligent energy, through free will, which is exactly what Don said, reaches for the logos, right? It reaches to the particular logos which is manifesting itself from, in this case, our sun. Or in the case of the mind-body-spirit complex, the sub-logos. In this case now, they're talking about a different holographic iteration of the same thing, okay? This can get complicated, but no. The sub-logos is the higher self, right? I love that. I love the sub-logos of the mind-body-spirit complex is the higher self. I'm adding this in, so they didn't say it. That is the free will potentiated beingness of the mind-body-spirit complex. Free will potentiated beingness is higher self. The higher self is the one that wants to express here. Everybody is enacting their own higher self. The personality, the deep personality of everybody, not the egoic personality, but the real one, the one that laughs, you know, the one that loves, the one that shares, the one that sacrifices itself. That's higher self in each and every one of us. So that is the one that, just like the mind-body-spirit complex reaches into this higher self. You know, this is work with higher self. But then this finishes, right? Reaches to intelligent infinity, okay? Love and all that follows from that logos. It reaches that the same The matrix of the mind is that which reaches to intelligent infinity, love, and all that follows from that logos. I'm just going to go with this punctuation because I know that there's a different one and I won't even talk about that. But in this one, we're talking about the matrix of the mind reaches to intelligent infinity, love, and all that follows from that logos. So the matrix of the mind is always going to reach to intelligent infinity, love, and that which follows from the logos. To the matrix, or the conscious waiting self of each entity, which is that part that we describe ourselves as the screen in which everything is appearing. The love, or the sub-logos spinning through free will, all those things which may enrich the experience of the creator by the creator. Yeah, to this last part is tricky. To the matrix, the conscious waiting self. Let's go bit by bit. To the matrix, or shall we say the conscious waiting self of each entity. Okay. They call it the waiting self of each entity. Why is it a waiting self? Remember when we talked about the matrix of the mind being just completely crystal clear, like it has no it's nothing without potentiation. It's nothing without the intention, the drive, the impetus of the significator, I would say. That awaiting matrix, the love, or the sub-logos spinning through free will is, I guess, what reaches it. All those things which may enrich the experience of yourself. Let me just call it that. So yeah, again, this can be interpreted in many ways. So I'll just leave it at this. This whole thing can be summarized to me as to say that there is an interaction between the desire for experience and that which is available, right? So if we get along with this dynamic of the desire for experience, and which type of experience do you want? Well, go inside and see what is it that you really want. The deeper you go, the more you get used to, oh, this is what life wants through me. You see, I love the explanation that we are not human beings, individual human beings. We are what nature is wanting to do. Like if you see a squirrel out here, a chipmunk, I have a lot of chipmunks where I live. Is it really an individual moving, or is it nature moving through the individual? Right? We can describe it as, what is nature doing through the chipmunk? Well, the same thing. What is nature doing here? What does it want to do? I can tap into that desire and say, oh, yes, it wants to do this. It wants to dance. It wants to talk. It wants to sing. It wants to paint. It wants to explain, or it wants to study. It wants to, whatever it is. What is it that it really wants? And it's not just the main activity is, what does it enjoy? What is it that enjoys, out of this activity? Then that is, to me, this whole dynamic. You see, because there is a matrix of mind and it's looking for potentiation. Call it intelligent infinity that you're touching or tapping into. Call it intelligent energy that is moving, or just simply experience. And you, as the conscious being, are that matrix, or that masculine principle, right? Which is the stillness, the North Pole, the conscious awareness. Everything that is attracted to is experience. So I'm going to leave it at that. There's one more paragraph in this answer, and I think we're going to call it, we're going to wrap it up. Ross says, it is indeed so that the biases of the potentials of a mind-body-spirit complex cause the catalyst of this entity to be unique and to form a coherent pattern that resembles the dance, full of movement, forming a many-figure tapestry of motion. Wow, that's a beautiful way to end it for sure. So it is the biases of the potentials of a mind-body-spirit complex. Your biases, your inclinations, that which I'm referring to, go into that. Go into whatever it is that you feel that you want to do, right? There is an urge, there is a desire, there is a passion in you that wants to do something. Get in touch with that. You see, those are the biases. You can see it as potentials. Why? Because you haven't been doing it. Because you want it, because you envision it, and you see it and it's beautiful, you know, and it's great, and it's changing the world, and it's changing you, and it's changing other people, and it's just painting this universe with your own colors, shall I say. That, get in touch with that. And that dynamic of you, the waiting self that Ra said, that matrix that you are enacting here, that archetype is touching, is playing, is dancing with, then that particular bias that you have, which is just your passion, let's call it that, what you're passionate about, you know, those potentials, those are the ones that are going to create this dance full of movement, forming a many-figure tapestry of emotion. Ah, beautiful. I love it. So, yeah, that is the best I can possibly talk about this. I don't have anything but conclusions. This question 13 again. I think it summarizes very well the work between matrix and potentiator, and I'm gonna conclude it at this. As I talked about, this dynamic is the dynamic of you being able to touch with that intimate, so intimate part of you that only you can know, only you can experience, and it's awaiting to be expressed out. It requires no preparation, it requires no study, nothing but the allowance, the acceptance of what is. And I'll give you an example of this as I have seen it. I've seen it with myself in what I do, which is this, teaching and talking and expressing my own thoughts. But also, I think it's a lot more clear in people who create art, because art we all appreciate, music, paintings, sculptures, and so on. Somebody who is very repressed and maybe likes to play with, you know, with Play-Doh, you know, that person feels maybe I'm 30 years old and I like playing with Play-Doh. That Play-Doh, that's children's stuff. Why? Why are you having those thoughts? You know, if we help this person out and say, no, please, you know, go. We encourage you to keep playing and making things, and that's valuable. You know, can I buy that? You know, that's awesome. Can you do more of this? Can I, you know, order so much of this and that? And, you know, this person starts playing with it, and suddenly, you know, it says, no, I can do more things. I can do it with clay, and I can do it with, you know, this and that, and so on. That, they needed no training. They just needed the experience of allowing that to be. That's what they wanted to do. Apply this to musicians, or to, you know, writers, or you know, anybody who likes to create things or do things for others and help others. You know, oh, I don't know if I should help people because they're going to think that I am this and I have an inferiority complex because I don't feel that I'm enough, and so on. Well, all of this is what needs to be cleared out. That's the healing process. And so what comes out is this. So you see, it's not something that you need to learn. It's something that you need to allow, to respect, to honor, to love of yourself, to accept of yourself. That's how I would put it. And that is the interaction, to me, between matrix and potentiator. It's the reason why, of course, these archetypes needed to exist in the past, before the veil, because they were necessary. There is a matrix, which is what I'm experiencing, and then there is the potentiation of that which I want to experience, right? And that which is constantly changing due to the experience of this dynamic, I call significator. And we'll talk about the significator in part 2 of this session. But with that, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much, as usual, for watching. Like I've been saying lately, if you want to support what I do here, very easy. Go to Patreon. It's the best way you can do it. And links are always in the description. I appreciate that. I have nothing else to say but to invite you for part 2. This is possibly going to be a 3-part session again, as we dive deeper and deeper into the potentiator of the mind. But that's all we have for now. Until next time, take care, good day, good night, wherever you are, and I'll see you in part 2 of session 92.